Welcome to Build Strong Habits podcast channel. Sit back, relax, take your eyes off the screen, and listen. Just listen to this audio podcast, and let's start building habits that transform our life.
All right, get ready, because today we are diving deep into Rich Dad, Poor Dad, a book that's pretty much a must-read for anyone who wants to take control of their finances. Two dads, two totally different ways of thinking about money. And you know what? It seems like you've actually woven a lot of the book's wisdom into your own financial journey, which is pretty cool.
It really is amazing how Kiyosaki uses his own story, these two father figures in his life, to make all these financial concepts come alive. It's not just about the numbers. It's about the emotions, the mindset shifts, like the whole human experience of money.
Absolutely. And speaking of mindset shifts, let's talk about one of the book's big ideas, the difference between assets and liabilities. Kiyosaki's really open about sharing his own early financial missteps, like racking up credit card debt, which I think a lot of us can relate to.
Oh, yeah, for sure. He uses those stories, those relatable moments, to really drive home this crucial point, understanding what puts money in your pocket, which are assets, and what takes it out, liabilities. He even has this really powerful line: the rich buy assets, the poor only have expenses.
Whoa, that's a powerful quote. It's like a wake-up call to, really look at our spending habits. And I think it's so cool to see how you've actually applied this idea in your own life. Like, you started tracking your expenses, figuring out what's an investment in your education, a real asset, versus those impulse buys that don't really get you anywhere.
Yeah, that's right. And that shift in thinking, that's really at the core of Kiyosaki's philosophy. It's about building a solid foundation of financial literacy, understanding where your money's actually going, and making choices that line up with your
It's
goals.
like he gives you this new pair of financial glasses to see the world through. And it's not just about the numbers. Rich Dad, Poor Dad tackles the emotional side of money, too, like the fear of failure, which you mentioned struggling with when you were thinking about starting your own side business.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Kiyosaki's advice on embracing failure as a stepping stone, it's really powerful. He doesn't try to sugarcoat entrepreneurship like it's easy. He acknowledges the challenges, but he really encourages us to see them as opportunities for growth.
Totally. And you really embodied that, taking that leap and launching your online venture, even with those early bumps in the road. That takes guts.
Yeah, it does.
And it aligns perfectly with what Kiyosaki's all about, taking action instead of getting stuck in fear.
Exactly. He wouldn't want you to be paralyzed, right? He wants you to learn by doing, gain experience, and refine your approach as you go. And that actually ties directly into another big theme of his: financial literacy.
And that's where things get really interesting. I love how you dove headfirst into podcasts, workshops, all kinds of resources to boost your financial knowledge. That proactive approach, that's exactly what Rich Dad, Poor Dad encourages, right? It's not about blindly following advice. It's about becoming an informed decision maker.
Absolutely. It's about taking ownership of your financial future. And it's not just about absorbing information. It's about actually putting that knowledge into action. And I think we see a perfect example of this in your decision to invest in real estate, which was something directly inspired by the book, right?
It was. Taking that leap and buying your first investment property. I bet that felt pretty amazing.
It really did. It aligns with Kiyosaki's whole thing about creating these passive income streams, the kind of income that works for you even when you're sleeping. Real estate's a classic example of that.
It's about like shifting your perspective,
Yeah.
right? Seeing the opportunity instead of just the burden, kind of like what Kiyosaki's always saying. But Rich Dad, Poor Dad, it doesn't just stop at practical strategies, does it? It goes deep into the emotional stuff around money, too.
Oh, absolutely. The book, it's like this catalyst for really looking inward. Remember how it made you think about your own upbringing
Yeah,
and those anxieties you had about money?
it was a real eye-opener. And that's where Kiyosaki's whole rich dad mindset really comes in, right? It's about believing in abundance and possibility,
Yeah.
not letting fear or scarcity hold you back.
Totally. And what's interesting is that Kiyosaki, he doesn't say you have to do this alone. He believes in the power of community and learning together.
Which brings us to another awesome part of your story. You didn't just read the book, you actually started a financial book club, bringing people together to discuss these ideas. That's amazing.
Thanks. It really does show Kiyosaki's point about community. It's about creating this supportive group where everyone can learn from each other's experiences and hold each other accountable. It boosts the learning and keeps everyone motivated.
It's amazing how you've really taken the spirit of Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Hmm.
and gone beyond just reading it. You're actively applying these ideas to make a real difference in your life and in the lives of
Well,
others.
that's what it's all about, right? It just shows how important it is to see financial education as this ongoing journey, not just some finish line you cross.
So true. And speaking of journeys, we have to talk about one of Kiyosaki's most famous concepts, passive income through real estate.
Hmm.
You said that Rich Dad Poor Dad influenced your decision to invest in property. Could you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. This is where, Kiyosaki's practical advice really shines. He breaks down real estate investing and shows how it can help build lasting wealth.
So it's not just about owning property, right?
Hmm.
It's about understanding how to use it as an asset that generates income.
Exactly. And it's interesting to connect this back to your own experience. You mentioned feeling, some fear and uncertainty before making that first investment.
Well, taking that first leap can be scary, but you did it, which shows how powerful Kiyosaki's teachings are.
It's a good reminder that financial freedom often means stepping outside of our comfort zones and taking, calculated risks. But Kiyosaki, he's not saying to be reckless. He really stresses how important it is to educate yourself financially and to do your research before making any investment decisions.
He's all about empowering people to make smart choices, not just following the crowd or getting caught up in the hype.
Exactly. And that leads us to another key takeaway from Rich Dad Poor Dad, the power of mindset. Kiyosaki, he really believes that what we believe about money, it can either hold us back or, push us towards success.
I remember that chapter where he talks about the difference between a scarcity mindset and an abundance mindset.
Yeah.
That was a real aha moment for you, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. A scarcity mindset, it's rooted in fear and lack, while an abundance mindset, it's all about believing in opportunity and possibility. And Kiyosaki, he argues that having an abundance mindset, it's super important for reaching financial freedom.
And you totally took that to heart, right?
Yeah.
You talked about how the book helped you shift your perspective on money, going from anxiety to a more positive and empowered outlook.
Yeah, it did. And it's inspiring to see how these principles can actually make a real difference in someone's life. It shows that we all have the power to choose our mindset
Right.
and shape our financial futures.
And speaking of shaping our futures, Kiyosaki also talks about taking control of our finances, instead of relying on others to manage our money. He warns against just blindly trusting financial advisors, and he really pushes readers to become financially literate so they can make informed decisions about their investments and planning.
It's about being the CEO of your own financial life, right? It's not just about making money. It's about understanding how money works and how to make it work for you.
Exactly. And this brings us to another big theme in the book, building assets that create passive income. Kiyosaki's always emphasizing the difference between working for money and having your money work for you. He points to things like real estate and businesses as key examples.
Right. He sees these assets as the foundation for long-term wealth and financial freedom, and he gives practical advice on how to find and acquire these assets, even if you're starting with very little.
And it's not about, getting rich quickly. Kiyosaki's philosophy is all about building sustainable wealth over time. He stresses patience, discipline, and having a long-term perspective.
Yeah, he's all about playing the long game, and creating a solid financial base that can support you and your family for, generations.
One of the things I really admire about Rich Dad Poor Dad is that it's not just some boring theoretical book on finance. It's full of real-life stories that make the ideas relatable and interesting.
Absolutely. Kiyosaki's own experiences, both the good and the bad, they serve as, powerful examples of his principles. Do you remember that story about how he bought his first rental property? He's very open about the challenges he faced and the lessons he learned along the way.
It reminds us that the road to financial freedom, it's not always smooth sailing, right? There will be setbacks and obstacles.
Sure.
But if you have the right mindset and knowledge, you could overcome those challenges and reach your goals.
And speaking of overcoming challenges, Kiyosaki also emphasizes learning from our mistakes. He doesn't see failure as the end, but as a chance to learn something valuable.
All right, he encourages readers to embrace failure, analyze their mistakes, and use those lessons to, improve their strategies and decision-making. It's about having a growth mindset and always looking for opportunities to learn and grow. And that message, it goes way beyond just finance.
Absolutely. Kiyosaki's teachings, they can be applied to all parts of life. It's about developing a mindset of empowerment, taking ownership of our choices, and going after our goals with passion and determination.
What's really inspiring about your story is how you've embraced these principles and built a life that's, full of purpose and abundance. It's not just about financial success. It's about living a life that aligns with your values and what you're passionate about.
Well, thank you. It's really a testament to the power of financial education and like having a growth mindset. It reminds us that we all have the potential to achieve our dreams if we're willing to embrace the journey and put in the work.
It's like Rich Dad Poor Dad provided the spark. And you took that spark and created this incredible ripple effect in your life.
And that brings us back to one of the book's most powerful messages. It's not just about individual success, it's about empowering others and sharing what you know.
Wow, Rich Dad Poor Dad clearly had a huge impact on you. It's inspiring to see how those principles have played out in your own journey.
It really reinforces the idea that financial education, it's an ongoing process, not a destination. And this book, it offers a fantastic roadmap for that journey.
So to wrap things up, let's leave our listeners with something to think about. If you could ask Robert Kiyosaki one question about building wealth or achieving financial freedom, what would it be?
That's a good one. It really makes you think about what speaks to each person, right? Rich Dad, Poor Dad, it offers so much, from like changing your mindset to practical tips on building those assets.
It does. And one thing that really stood out to me was how Kiyosaki emphasizes challenging, like the usual way of thinking about money.
Yeah.
He wants us to question what we've been taught and to, think for ourselves.
Exactly. He's not afraid to go against the flow. Like, remember his take on homeownership? It's not always the American dream everyone makes it out to be.
Right. He challenges that idea that a house is always a good thing, pointing out that it can actually be a burden if it's not making you money or like going up in value.
Exactly. You don't hear that very often, especially from, traditional financial advisors.
Yep.
And that's what makes Rich Dad, Poor Dad so interesting. It forces us to look at our own beliefs about money and to be open to new possibilities.
Right. It's like he's giving us permission to question the rules, to like define success on our own terms,
Exactly.
which can be pretty liberating.
Oh, for sure. Especially if you've always felt stuck in that traditional way of thinking about money.
Right.
It's about having the power to make choices that align with your own goals and values, not just blindly following what everyone else says you should do.
And it's not just about, personal empowerment. It's about using what you know about money to make a positive impact on the world. Kiyosaki talks about the importance of giving back, using wealth to create opportunities for others.
Right. He believes that true wealth, it goes beyond just having money. It's about living a life with purpose, contributing to something bigger than yourself. And that really shines through in your own story. You've not only achieved financial success, but you've also created this positive ripple effect through your book club and other things you're doing.
That's so true. And that's the real legacy of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, isn't it? Inspiring people to not just change their own lives, but to help lift others up along the way.
Absolutely. It's about understanding that financial freedom, it's not just an individual thing, it's something we do together. And when we empower ourselves and each other, we create a world that's more abundant and fair for everyone.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Rich Dad, Poor Dad, it's clear that this book has been way more than just a financial guide for you. It's been a catalyst for personal growth, a source of inspiration, and a blueprint for creating a life of purpose and abundance.
Yeah, it has. It's a powerful reminder that the journey to financial freedom, it never really ends. It's about constantly learning, growing, and, evolving our relationship with money.
And most importantly, it's about sharing what we know and helping others start their own journeys towards financial well-being. So keep those conversations going, keep questioning the usual way of doing things, and keep striving to create a brighter financial future for yourself and everyone around you.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Build Strong Habits. Let us know in the comments how you feel about it and what topics you'd love to hear next. Always remember, we're here to build strong habits together.